Yes, at my happy place. We've got currently a moderate southerly, but I've come down here, it's dead low tide. What I like to do when I do my beach scouting is I'd like to come down at either a high tide or a low tide. I've got a very, very low tide. I'm gonna grab the camera, we're gonna walk in the water, and I'm gonna go through what I sort of look for if I'm looking at fishing this area this week. Now, keep in mind the conditions, they will change. The wind is quite strong, so I'll keep the mic close to the chest. Hopefully we'll get down. Look, I'm going to be looking for things like, any bait, any fixed weed beds, any activity. I'm going to, I've got the polarized sunglasses on. We're going to do an open beach now, and then we're going to head to some local reefs while it's still low tide. We're going to jump on some reef. I've got the reef shoes with me, and we're just going to go through a few things I look for when I spend, you're spending that time to scout the local area before you head out for a fish. It saves a lot of time and sort of get to know what size rod, what tackle you're going to bring down as well for the morning or evening session. So that southerly is kicking in now, so we'll make it harder to see through the water. But let's get down there and have a look at the water. What a beautiful sunny morning. Let's get it. Looking for the shallower section. So in this particular beach here, we've got a very shallow front section. Now, if you've got a 0.4 or a 0.5, you're not actually going to be able to stand and actually fish. The waves obviously are breaking quite a fair distance out. So obviously we are at dead low tide. I'm just looking for an area where I can actually get in without getting too wet. Now, there's generally not a lot of fish in this front section of these beaches. Very, very shallow. Even on that 0.4 and 0.5, very, very hard for those fish to come through. So what we're going to do, we're just going to find somewhere. Well, that water's quite cold. So we've got a southerly in at the moment. So I'm pretty much just coming down. You'll be able to see, you see the sandbars. We get a bit closer. Oh, that is cold. That is not warm. So I'm just walking. I'm probably currently in about ankle deep water. I'll just wait for this wave. I'm going to go actually stand on the sandbar. So all these beaches are different, and yes, they will definitely change, from even from a kilometre or two either way. So that's, well, it doesn't look big, but it's still reasonably quite large. I'm just currently looking for an area where I can actually jump in. So it's still a bit deep here. I can see over here, we'll just keep coming this way. As I said, nothing really holds in this front section this time of year. You really need to be casting just past the sandbar and just past that wave and bringing your bait through. And generally, when the swell's up, the tailor will be sort of on that, that white water line, and the herring you'll find they'll be a little bit further out at times as well. As I said, really hard to see the structure with this southerly, but we're going to go now. What I'm doing now is I'm walking in the front section. I can see a lot of whitebait, which is really encouraging. Probably won't pick it up on the camera. And I'm also looking for any flathead marks, any signs of life, any sand whiting. I don't think I'll see anything, out in the waves with this southerly currently. It's more just seeing the water's very clean. I want to see, as I'm wading through this front section too, I want to see what the side current's like. It's just about spending that time now. So, if you want to come back to this area this week, you sort of know what you're in for. But I'm going to tell you now, you need to get out past that front section to fish. So here we go, watch this. So I'm up on the sandbar now. It is shallow, so it is only, there's my boots. It's only ankle deep. So if you want to fish these beaches, you're going to have to stand, on this sandbar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go up and down on this sandbar, try not to get knocked over with the camera gear. And I'm just looking for, as I said, any schooling fish, any whitebait. And also what I want to do when I'm, sort of at this level, I want to see if there's any weed beds that are established. Because if there's any weed beds that are, currently just sitting there on the sandy bottom, that's where I want to come back and fish. That's where the bait's going to be holding. I mean, I definitely want to be fishing right now. The structure, look, it's not fantastic, I guess. And you also, with that tide running out, you're going to have that wave pushing up. Very, very sandy, very, very sanded up with that low tide. These beaches are really, really hard to fish with the current structure. Generally this time of year, sort of this front section's gone and you're just casting past the waves. But so as those waves are breaking, I'm just looking for any signs of life, any weed beds. And so the water is beautiful, it's crystal clear, which is, happy days. So I guess the only thing, you know, that I'll take out of this is if I want to come back here, I know I'll have to get wet. So it'd be probably waist deep if I want to come here first thing tomorrow morning. And, hoppa! So there's that sandbar. Very, very sanded up water. So yeah, the structure on all these beaches is different. But, you know, you've got to spend that time, look around. Just spending that extra half an hour one day just helps you sort of get an idea of what size rods you're going to bring down. Are you going to throw lures? Are you going to do some bait fishing, some beaky rig? But it looks very lifeless, to be honest. It doesn't look like there's too much happening here. So we might jump back in the car. We're going to go head down to Trig now. We're going to go walk a couple of reefs along that stretch, and we'll get the camera out and we'll go stand on some reef and see what it looks like out there. Very, very low tides all this week, so obviously those reef locations will allow you to stand on the reef. You're still going to get wet, but you're going to be able to cast right through the zone. Now, it's not uncommon at this time of day to see flathead, you know, cruising on that sandy bottom, to see schools of herring, whitebait, tailor, you know. So you will catch fish all through the day. Obviously, the first light and last light's your best bite times. And so that southerly's making it really hard to see through the water. You know, there's no weed here really, a couple of loose pieces. Other than that, it's quite clean. All right, let's go head down to Trig and see what we can see there. All right. Yes, very hard to see that southerly, but it still gives you a general idea, you know, what the swell's like, what the side current's like. There was a little bit of whitebait in that front section, which is quite encouraging. We're going to head down to Trig. We'll probably go Trig all the way up through to Hillary's. We'll stop at some reefs and hopefully give you legends a look at some reefs. We could jump on some reefs. Didn't bring the rod down, but I just want to go do a bit of scouting this morning and come up with some plans for the rest of the week. You. All right, we went to Trig. It's a little bit busy, so we've just come up near Waterman's Bay. I've got my boots on, not only for the rocks, but for the snakes as well. It's a bit of a warm morning. That southerly's quite refreshing. I'm just going to walk down this trail and we'll show you what a beautiful place we live. So, you know, there's so many areas you can go and explore. I guess for me, part of the scouting is just getting out of the house, clearing the mind, and going on these little adventures. So I'll flip the camera around in a sec. Super low tide, so we should be able to get out on the reef here and have a really good look. Just gonna do a bit of reef hopping. You get down there. You can see, what a spot, eh? So we're going to jump down here. Somehow we'll get down. So I've got the reef shoes on, so I'm just going nice and slow. Jump down here. Whoop! Ah, all right, almost on the sand. Woohoo! Beautiful morning. Absolutely stunning morning. All right, made it. So pretty much Hillary's all the way through to Cottesloe. You've got so many areas with broken ground. And, you know, for me, it's just about putting the time in. You know, you're not always going to catch fish every time you come. You have to, if you have that attitude, honestly, it's just not going to, you know, it's going to end in tears. You've got to put the time in. I usually like to do lots of bait here, by the way. Wow. Wow, see if I can go this other pool here. That was a ton of whiting that just swam through. So obviously we've got really low tide, you know, not a lot of swell. I've got my reef shoes on. You know, with this demersal band as well, there's so many things we can do land-based. And I really want to push the point of, you know, beach fishing and rock fishing and, you know, supporting the local tackle stores that are going to need your support more than ever now. You know, like Tackle West, for example, come and see the anglers like myself. We fish week in, week out. We'd love to get you set up to get you some land-based stuff. Obviously, demersal fishing is a lot of, you know, I know a lot of you that might watch this, it's your passion. I respect that, I understand that. But we have an amazing coastline. As you can see here, I could literally be in a tropical island right now, but I'm literally, you know, there's guys snorkeling. Look at this. This is just absolutely so cool. But I said, you know, with the demersal band, why don't you come down to Tackle West, you know, Beckingham, Myrie, Aussie Park, come and see us. We'll get you all kitted out, you know, and go out and just try something different. It's just so much fun. I'm just going to walk these reef holes. Now, I must say, you've got to walk out. If you did want to come down here, obviously you need to have the right foot equipment. You know, generally you want to fish with a second person. Obviously we don't have a lot of swell. Now tomorrow morning, this will probably be double, you know, double in water volume. So you could probably, I'm going to go to the ledge. I'm not going to go to the, we're in here, be very mindful. There's octopuses, there's lots of nasty, so be very mindful. Make sure you do have the correct footwear. But so that southerly's going to probably swing to a southwester pretty soon. But what a place we live. So I'm just going to go look at some of them. I might just go in and look at some of these rock pools. I think at the moment, the current structure, you'd probably be able to do some surface lures, but you still, you know, there's the front bit there. You've still got to obviously wade out. And as I said, we're at the dead low now, so it's still going to be a lot more water volume tomorrow. But all this reef and structure, you know, it holds the bait, all your food source for your larger predators. As I said, try something different. You know, if you can't go and get your demersal species, which I know is extremely hard for a lot of you, go into your local tackle west store, speak to the team and do some land-based. We've got an amazing coast, and especially coming into the school holidays, summer, you get your kids out and have a lot of fun. You know, there's so many fish you can target, but this is just so cool. Usually you'll see little octopuses and stuff in here. Like I said, we could be, okay, so I've got the studs on my reef shoes. I'm obviously bracing myself for impact. Obviously you would not come out here with bigger swell, just would be unsafe. But have a look, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So I could be anywhere. I could be in a tropical island right now. So this has got a lot of structure here. Obviously, if you're looking at fishing these areas, you'll be looking at predominantly topwater fishing. As I said, tomorrow, you know, that low tide is going to be a little bit later again. So if you come in first thing in the morning, you might give yourself a good chance of nabbing a few tail. But as you can see, it's really, 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 really low tide. I said all up and down the coast, there's these amazing little spots you can go and try. You know, have a few casts, or even just bring the kids down. I'm going to go back and show you these little rock pools as well. I'm always watching the ocean. I never have my back to the ocean. I'm always walking back sideways just in case there's a rogue wave. Absolutely stunning coast. We've got an amazing coast. I mean, I could spend the whole morning just looking at these rock pools. It's so much fun. As I said, Trigg's definitely been busy lately. Same with Yancham, and look, that's to be expected. This time of year, it's a lot calmer. It's a lot easier for a lot of anglers to go and stand on those ledges and have a crack. And I don't blame them as well. I think fair play. You know, it's really, you know, and it's an amazing thing to be able to go stand on a reef and throw some lures or some unweighted baits. I was going to go in this rock pool down here. Oh man, what a day. That southerly is actually quite refreshing. It's not too bad. It will probably swing to a southwester. So as you can see, here's the edge. So all this here on a high tide, this fills up with fish. So, oh yeah, we've got some really good sand whiting. So there's a lot of bait already in here. As I said, because we are fishing, you know, these areas, if you do want to fish, you've already got your structure, you've already got places for these fish to come and feed and hide. As I said, these little rock pools, really safe right now because it's low tide. And as I said, I've already seen some big sand whiting. So they'll be Mr. Taylor's main diet, I'd say, around here. You don't see a lot of herring around these reefy areas. You find more herring, I guess, Hillaries, rock walls, and things like that. But there's a ton of sand whiting. Let's see how close they'll let me go. I would say, without exaggerating, a school. See if I can get right in there and get them on the camera. Probably a school of 30 sand whiting just sitting in this rock pool. I'll see if I can turn the camera. I'm not going to catch them underwater. But I've got them in front of me and they're just going to swim straight through there they go, straight through my feet. Very cool. So they're right on that edge now. So that's really cool. They're just cruising along in this little rock pool. Beautiful. But yeah, I don't know, the rest of this week, the winds aren't ideal, the tides aren't great as such. I'd much rather fish these areas with a lot more water. I just find that the tailor are more likely to come right in on those edges. When it's like this, it is really hard going. You do have to walk quite a fair way out, which does make it quite dangerous at times as well. But beautiful. I'm just going to have a look at this last rock pool, and then I'm going to have to call it a day. Adult thing to do, but really encouraging signs. A ton of whiting in close. I might just go to the next beach across. But have a look at this little rock pool. So cool. There's the chopper. Keeping everyone safe. Well done, boys and girls. West back. Just say West Coast Eagles, but Westpac chopper. It's keeping everyone safe. Absolutely amazing. So look at this little cool rock pool here. I actually think there's a, fairly sure it's a flathead or a wrasse down the bottom there. So these little rock pools are so cool. There's just so much marine life in them. And you sort of do when you do these little scouting missions, you can sort of see the structure, sort of visualize where that fish, might be. Oh, there's so many whiting in here. So many sandies. I don't reckon you get them to bite though, in these little rock pools. I think they're just sort of hiding from Mr. Taylor, I'd say, at the moment. We might just go one more section of beach. But look how pretty this coast is. We are absolutely so lucky to live here. But generally I'll spend, half a day going up and down. Sometimes I've got to drive an hour or two to go look at where I want to fish as well. So, and I very well, so many whiting. All those sandies. I have to get the undercover case in and just get all these sand whiting on camera. There's so many of them. It's definitely not as many off the open beaches though. They're all in these little rock pools. But for me, as I said, scouting's not only good for me to distract myself from my adult responsibilities like housework and doing things around the house that I'm, pretending that I don't need to do. But it's just good to clear the mind, have a reset. I mean, this is beautiful. This is absolutely stunning. So obviously you can't do any of this on high tide. I'm able to walk around, as you can see that water going out. So it's going to show you this. This is quite a large bit of reef coming up here. And you will find on the weekends, you will see quite a few anglers that'll go stand on the edge here and cast out for Taylor. So predominantly, most of these spots are just Taylor spots. I mean, I love catching Taylor, but I said I'll go stand on this reef here and I'll give you a bit more of a look, and then I'm going to keep heading up towards Hillary's, probably go look at the rock wall, see if anyone's out there fishing. But as you can see, absolutely amazing. So we're going to go into the rock wall now. As I said, we are at low tide at the moment, so I'm able to walk out, but obviously you've got to make sure you have the correct footwear on as well. As you can see, quite shallow. You wouldn't be able to do this obviously with swell, because you just get knocked over. As you see, still coming in, and you still, if you did want to cast, you still got to cast quite a way out. So it is a tricky spot, but I know it has a lot of Taylor up and down these edges of that reef, so lots of white water coming back in. That tide's going to start coming back through, even though it's not a high tide till this evening, it's going to come back through. We might go one more beach and then keep going up the coast. I'll just show you this last little bit here. Probably one of the largest stretches of fixed reef you can stand on. But again, it all depends on your tide, the wind and swell. Be very, very mindful when you are looking at these reefs, if you do want to come and have a cast, that you've got to have the right conditions, you've got to be safe. You don't want to come out here when there's too much water or swell. But I said, what a stunning place we live. I've actually got to go this way to get out anyway. So, as you can see, quite a lot of reef here. I know a lot of people will go down, I'll show you this. A lot of people want to fish the clean water. I don't necessarily like the clean water. I actually like, the Taylor will be sitting on these reefs. So sometimes you'll see them finning up. I actually would rather, for example, there's the reef there. I probably want to be casting straight there, and there's little patches of reef. So there's still some open water, but little bits of reef. Obviously, I'm not going to cast right on the reef there because I know they're not going to be actively swimming there. And I'm just going to show you this end bit here where I see a lot of anglers fish. But for me, I don't think there's enough structure, as in there's too much open water. Like, you sort of need a balance at times. And again, the fish aren't always at these spots. You've got to give it a crack and see what happens, We'll just go to this last spot here. Man, I could spend days and days just walking these beaches. So nice. I'll just show you this last one. That southerly is pumping. Like, you don't need to go So you can see the edge of that reef there, and then you've got that sort of that blue open water. You don't need to go all the way out there. Like I said, I'd be fishing on that end there and casting into the patches. But I see a lot of anglers, you know, generally when I'm driving home or to and from my fishing adventures, I see them here sort of late in the day, and they'll sort of just stand on this corner here where the seagulls are, and they'll sort of cast. As you can see, there is some broken. I think it's not broken up enough, if that makes any sense. So, but yeah, obviously, look, on a high tide, you come at the low tide, you can see all your structure, you can see where your fixed reef is, any weed, loose weed, as you can see in the water there. But this is a dynamite spot. I see them fishing more in the middle, but if it's me, I'd sit right here on this edge and cast in that 45, and they'd just be cruising the tail. They'd be coming in here where that wave's breaking. They'd be sitting at the back there, and you know, they'll come out and smash. You're on that edge with all that broken reef, they'll come out and smash. I just don't like that. It's too much open. It's too clean there. You need a little bit more structure. But anyway, I'm going to call it a day. I've got adult things to do. But as I said, thanks for joining us. This is what I generally do week to week. I actually really enjoy just getting out and having a look. And what I find fascinating with all our metro coastline, it's also different. You know, I went to an open beach before. It had a little front gutter and a shallower back section. I could go, you know, maybe 2 kilometres down from that area, and it would have no front section. So I guess you do have to put the time in. I certainly don't have the time to go all up and down the coast all day. I wish I could. I'd love to be able to film all the beaches and help more people get out and fish, but yeah, that's definitely not my reality. As I said, there is so much structure along our metro coastline, you know, to go and target, tailor on light tackle, top water lures with these low tides. So I'm gonna get my thinking hat on. I think I'll hit an open beach tomorrow and probably come down this way Wednesday morning for a quick spin. Use that easterly to help me cast. As I said, we just did one last shot. It's absolute paradise. All right, see how we go. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for watching, and back to reality. It sucks being an adult sometimes.